Welcome to another crypto weekly breakdown. We're going to review the weekly close on Bitcoin that has just closed yesterday, the 5th of May. We're going to get an understanding of what is potentially shaping up in Bitcoin and the altcoin market, and also looking at the intermarket dynamics of what's occurring to give us an indication of what is potentially shaping up and what we can expect over the next few weeks. So as you can see, we've took the high and we've essentially consolidated for a period of a month now, 70 days. And what we done is we formed liquidity on the range high and range low, as you can see from this low and this high. And all we've done is ranged, and essentially last week we swept the range low and liquidity and give us a nice bullish close and a nice indication from this bullish fair value gap here. So at this point, it's given us good signals for what is potentially to come, such as when we done this similar event here where we formed a range, took liquidity into the bullish fair value gap, and then we started a new trend to the upside. Now, while I do think that is potentially in play here, we do need to confirm a little bit more bullish on intent on the daily time frame. Whilst this could be that reversal in local bottom forming for higher prices, I do think there is potential to see further lows and essentially to be mitigating a little bit more of a discount here. But until we see some more daily closures and a little bit better idea of what is shaping up here over the next couple days, it's yet to be seen what Bitcoin does here until we sort of mitigate this part of the wick here, which is a fair value gap on the daily, and we see some commitment for price to drive higher. And once we start to see that, then I'll be more comfortable with calling this the local bottom. But until this point, at the minute, we're still yet to see a little bit more confirmation shape up on the lower time frames to confirm this being that local bottom, to see that next leg drive up in price. So if we jump down to the daily, it's a bit more clear. You can see that essentially we've just been forming a range since the 4th of March, and we've essentially took the range low now and not aligned bullish as such. We've swept this high here, which was the prior range, the prior bearish range, and we've swept it with essentially a liquidity sweep. So I want to see price come into this area here, back into a bit of a discount and into this fair value gap, and I want to see price essentially start to move bullish from this area and then start to accept and continue that bullish momentum into new higher highs and into the range high. But if you take a look at what happened here in the prior range, is we can see quite clearly where we had that bearish engulfing, where we took the sell side liquidity, we moved above that level, body closes, we then ranged and consolidated, accepted that level, and then moved up. And I'm just not seeing the same thing shape up here yet. We haven't closed above this high for a start. We've just wicked it, and we've wicked it into a bit of a key area as well, into the 50% of a range, as well as coming into some fair value gaps on the 12-hour, as you can see, where price broke down from this region, and all we're doing is returning into a bearish fair value gap, taking liquidity. So there is still a little bit of confirmations to be had to see if this zone here is going to hold, and this will sort of be the decisional factor of, I think, is if the market is going to hold from this level and continue higher, or if there's potential to see more manipulation play out in this range to continue building that cause-effect relationship and accumulation of orders before then seeing higher prices later on down the line. We are in May, we're coming up to summer, there's less volatility. There's always that stigma of selling May and go away. That has been an event that has happened on Bitcoin for the last consecutive 3-4 years now. And while the sell-off was pretty much predominantly through April and a little bit in March. I'm still questioning, are we going to see either price stagnate and just continue to range bound a little bit before seeing the real commitment to go higher, or are we going to see price continue to manipulate the lower boundary of the range before we see that commitment to then go higher? But for now, all I want to see is price start to form this in this region here and start to see some form of bullish change in character as we come into this zone and start to see us move out. And that's the signs I'm looking for with Bitcoin. If we jump over to stablecoin dominance pairs and we go with US dominance, USDT dominance, you can basically see what we've done is where we've broken down from this prior bearish swing here and here. And it's also on the monthly as well. If you jump on the monthly, you can see where we created a range supply, we broke down, we're returning back into that range supply area, starting to reject now. We've swept the previous high, so there is potential to see that momentum come into the market and continue bearish as such. But I still think at the minute we're still yet to see that commitment to change trend go and continue bearish right now. As you can see, the 2 weekly close was a bearish pin bar. We did reject from this level, but as you can see, there is still areas to mitigate deeper into this level here. Similar on the weekly is we had a nice rejection last week where we formed a bit of a level here and a bit of a range, and we've rejected and swept that level, similar to how Bitcoin has swept the 59k level as we've come into a key region here and as we've come into that fair value gap on the weekly on Bitcoin. But to be honest, based on the weekly and how it's closed, price could shape up to go lower from here, but I still think there is that potential to see this get wick hunted one more time and essentially this becoming targeted again into a bit deeper of this fair value gap here before then seeing the lower prices come through. But ultimately, don't forget, we are looking for price to become bearish again here, and we are trying to position ourselves in altcoins in a discount as price on this pair in particular comes into higher pricing, because as this comes into higher pricing, the market is crashing, and when this reaches its maximum, that's the best time to deploy your capital in the market, because essentially, like I've said in the past, this is highly correlated to market reversals. It's essentially the money flow in the market. So when you're essentially buying in the wicks and in the the capitulation events, you are positioning yourself very strong in the market in a very discounted region. And then when this pair reverses and money flows back into the market, you've essentially bought the discount of the market and riding the bullish trend as money flows back into the market. And if we jump down to the daily on this pair, I'm starting to see some good signs, but again, it's a little early to tell. So you can see we've got the bearish range from this low to this high, and we've got the fair value gap here. We've also took this rest in liquidity now here from these relatively equal highs here, and we've also formed this range high and range low, and that was also proceeding from this range. And all we've been doing is a corrective pullback into higher time frame key areas, and all I'm looking for is for price to come into this area. I want to see it reject, and then I want to see it continue going down back into this range, reject from a range, and then continue low into the lows of a range, and then back into a further discount to continue this trend, similar to as we've seen here in this fractal in price, where price took sell side liquidity, had a catalyst for pulled back into a key area as such here, where we had range created supply, we broke down, and then we consolidated, come back into key area, come back into that fair value gap, swept liquidity here, closed back below, rejected from that range high, and then again had a breakdown. And all I'm looking for is that same key series of events to happen in this pair, and when that happens, this is going to be the best time to position yourself in the market, because as I've said, this is the money flow in the market. So we want to be buying our coins and altcoins as this is at its maximums and at its most bullish, essentially. And similar, like I've just said, I am essentially looking for the breakdown where we create that liquidation event, we close back bearish, and I just want to see a return to this area here, where essentially we're in a range between there and there. And I want to see price come back up, reject from this level here, this breakdown, order block, fair value gap, and range high, especially as we've taken this external range liquidity now as well. And there is stacks of liquidity. If I just get rid of all there is absolutely stacks of liquidity now on this low here, this low, this low, this low, and then ultimately the higher time frame target that we mapped out quite a while ago, and that has been our drawn liquidity for some time now. Clear all of that up again. So yeah, essentially that's what I'm looking for at the minute. And again, this correlates well with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has done similar but inverse to this, where we took the lows and we've sort of aligned bullish on Bitcoin almost, but still yet to give us that real indication of intent to go higher. Where this pair in particular shows us there is potential for us to come into this area and then to see that breakdown. So this is potentially giving us early indications that we might see that happen, but we just need to monitor this area in particular, just like we need to monitor that fair value gap on Bitcoin on the daily, just to get an idea of, is this going to move to the upside with intent one more time, or is this truly going to be the reversal coming into play and we're going to continue bearish on this pair and bullish in the market to new all-time highs? The question is, are we ready for that right now? To be honest, I don't feel like the market is ready. I feel like, yes, we have corrected a considerable amount on altcoins, and I'd say we've corrected a reasonable amount on Bitcoin, but altcoins still look like they have a little wiggle room to move down. I certainly think there's some sell-side liquidity on some coins that needs to be taken, but I also think things are still consolidating right now after quite a large move to the downside. We are just trading within ranges and lower time frame ranges within higher time frame accumulation ranges. So the best thing right now is to have that DCA strategy where we are focused on buying price when it is in a discount and when it's moving in a discount to key levels, and not when it's pumping. So for instance, what I've been doing myself is I've been DCAing on a few coins that are in a very good discount right now, such as NUM. I've also bought a little bit of Mana as well while that's been low, and just getting some initial buys and some initial risk on some coins while they are low and discounted relative to the higher time frame, as well as being in key areas on them accumulation ranges within the higher time frame. So for me, I don't mind DCAing at these levels, knowing that at the minute the market's intention is not fully clear, and I'm quite happy to say that. I think there is that potential to see a potential reversal come in from this liquidation event now, but I also do feel that it's still potentially a little early and there isn't enough signs for me to validate projecting new all-time highs from just this single fair value gap here. And the same with Bitcoin, because I still think there is a little more potential for low pricing. You know, we've only just mildly swept the range lows here, and it's the same on sort of total 2. We have yet to take the low. We've took it here, but then we've essentially formed another range here on total 2. So you can see we're forming a range between this point and this point, but then we're just forming a macro range with inside that range. And if anything, I'm thinking price could potentially come into this area, come back into this key area here, into this fair value gap, and then look to take us out one more time to bring us back into a discount and back into this key trading area here, where price sort of had a level of acceptance and a level of value almost. And it's the same with total as well, where we've only just minorly swept the lows, and I still think there is that potential where we've broke down from here. This is now sort of a range, and there's liquidity here, so there is potential to see more of that range play out, more manipulation, lower prices before then seeing higher prices. But like I said, we just need some more daily closes to confirm the intent. But just please be aware that, I'm not overly convinced just yet. I'd have liked to see lower prices in this, and a bit lower prices in Bitcoin. But we'll just see, because, like I say, we need to react to what's in front of us, and there is bearish signs. We just need to see them confirmations that we are essentially, the levels are being accepted, and we are going to see key reversals form away from these. But again, as you see, this is USDC dominance. We've formed that range high there, range low. We've swept it into this key area here. As you can see, this order blocks from there to there. And all I'm looking for is for price to come up to this level, reject, and then start to see that breakdown. But I don't know, there's just something telling me that we're not quite there yet. We're not quite done. And if we just take a little look at some altcoins, and just to show you what I'm sort of shaping up, on the weekly, essentially we've just had that liquidation event, and we're just forming a range between a high and a low on the weekly time frame, and that is pretty much all we're doing for most altcoin pairs right now. Ranging in a discount, some more attractive than others after taking liquidity from the previous lows. But all we're doing is forming that range in price. So anything that is doing this right now, I would say, is attractive in value. You're not buying at the top anymore. You're buying at levels not seen since January, and even earlier from last year. You're also buying after a meaty correction of price from there 45% on Axie Infinity. So you're definitely going to be buying in a much safer place than, for instance, when you're trend chasing and you're buying in these levels up here. For instance, Phil, one of the reasons I'm still a little bit more bearish on the market is because if you look at Phil, is yes, we've come into this key level and we are just range bound, so there is that potential price could just move up from here. But I also think that there is potential that this is the last sell to buy range that broke structure here, that started that initiation phase out of the range bullish. And I'm thinking that price has potential to come and take liquidity from this low and come back and mitigate this zone deeper. I think price at the minute is just consolidating, and we're potentially setting up for maybe another liquidation event where we just come into sort of more of a key level and the fair value gaps that I've presented after these big moves, to then see price just drive down one more time into key levels to then go higher. And I think that would just correlate with Bitcoin coming a bit lower, or potentially consolidating over a longer period right now, because I'm not 100% sure that the market is ready to move from this area right now. And I wouldn't want to say that price is now forming a local bottom here just yet, because essentially we are just forming range bound price action, and we need to see more conviction to go higher, or we need to see that range low is what I'd be looking for to get violated, to then seeing essentially that higher time frame reversal play out, because all you're seeing is a range within a range. And as you can see, we form the range here, and the sweep is for reversal condition. So if we're forming another range between here and here, and there's also sell side liquidity here, is I want to be looking to buy the sweep of the sell side liquidity to then see that alignment bullish, because we know we're trading in the higher time frame of an accumulation range looking for higher prices as this is going from key levels, moving in a bullish phase out of this range. So as I noted, I've been buying a few different coins, just DCAing on existing holdings, and one of them has been Numbers. It's an AI coin. As you can see, we formed a range and we have broke out of that range. Essentially, we've broke out with lovely momentum. In a correctionary period, volume is dropping off substantially now as we're coming into key areas. There is very little sell pressure in the market now, essentially indicating that this correctionary phase is almost over. There isn't many sellers in the market pushing price down. We've just had a lovely range formed on the weekly on this candle there. We've swept the low in a bullish pin bar, and all I want to see is a reversal start to form and commitment to the upside from here. There still could be another few weeks left on this. As stated, the market is in a little bit of a phase where we just need to see some confirmations to see if price is going to either look to continue bullish from this area, or if we're going to see a bit more bearish momentum come into play. I'll take you over to UOS. This is another one I dropped in the Telegram, where I give buys in this region here as price is looking to take this sell side liquidity here. As also I was initially looking at this fair value gap and this liquidity here and looking for buys in this area, but buys throughout this leg are valid, especially underneath this sell side liquidity. And from a daily, you can start to see we're seeing some nice volume coming to the market here as we've took sell side liquidity, but we still are mitigating essentially bearish ranges across the board, and just consolidating after that period of bearish momentum right now. But the higher time frame is key, and we have to remember that, and all we are doing is consolidating in a key level after we've broke out in a bullish phase. And what we're looking for is we're looking for the higher time frame, higher low in this pair, in total 2, total 3, in total, to see continued momentum to the upside into these key levels. As you can see, we've left buy side liquidity here. This is screaming to get tagged. Same with the highs here. And all we're doing is just forming range liquidity either side, just consolidating, manipulating orders on both long and short with higher volume coming in as well. We are seeing that drop off in volume, which is a good sign, where we've had that initial push, starting to see volume slope off as we're coming into the key areas. Sell orders are being diminished and they're reducing, and then I'd like to see that low form and then higher volume as we start to expand to the upside again. And this is the same on total 3 as well. If I take you to this chart, we're essentially just forming that sort of retest event, the break and retest, where we've had that initial move, we retest into the fair value gap, we come into a discount before we expand higher. And that is essentially all we're doing here, where we've had that initial move as signaled by here, then we have that initial bullish leg, we come back, we're retesting fair value gap, liquidity and the previous highs, retest, and then we move higher. And that is all I'm looking for here. Exactly the same as this price action here. I'm looking for similar play in this area there. And we've also broke above that high there, that key level, and then we've sort of had that break, retest and move. And what I'm looking for is essentially similar, where we've broke out of this key level, we have that break, retest and move, break, retest and move. Granted, it might not come down to these levels, it's similar in idea, where we're just expecting that continuation to the upside coming into play after a period of consolidation in this range down here in a discount. And if we just go to total one more time, as you can see, we've broke through this high here and buy side liquidity, and we are taking support on a key level after we've broken through it. So we've broke through this key level and we're now just retesting it bullish. We've had many closes above this level in that bullish fair value gap, and we're just essentially looking for that higher low to form to see this buy side liquidity get taken, higher prices in the market, and see that reversal come through. And as I say, we're just looking to position ourselves in the discount of these wicks that are forming here, to position ourselves in altcoins to expect that higher time frame move to come through. As you can see on total, you know, we have had that bullish weekly close here, and it is a really good indication. But price right now, you know, is still very much range bound, just manipulating. I do want to see a bit more commitment, preferably with a body close, but at the end of the day, it didn't give us it here, and it certainly doesn't need to give us a body close here either. So like I say, it is just one to watch to see if we come into that level before then going higher.